Peace to everybody that's listening to this. I'm Darren Waller. If you don't know who I am, if those that do know me, I'm a pretty authentic dude, or at least try to be. Through if you've watched comeback stories.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to ATC. Today I want to talk about Darren Waller. And Darren recently just called it, probably about a day ago, officially decided to hang it up at the age of 31. And I want to talk about his remarkable plight. It is some of ups and downs, and yet overcoming demons to becoming a top tier tight end, even getting married to another athlete. And his story is a story of resilience. It's also a story of redemption. And we're going to talk about that on this edition of ATC. We are going to go ahead and get started right after this intro. Let's go. I'm going to go over the football lineage of Darren Waller just so that the picture can be painted to see how far he's come. And he starts out collegiately at Georgia Tech. And so as you can see on the screen, he was a very, very good college football player, a wide receiver, and very phenomenal. And he had the ability and the talent to get to the next level. And so he actually ends up entering or foregoing his final year of eligibility at the collegiate level, and he enters the 2015 NFL draft, where he was drafted in the 6th round. Now, I can think of many 6th-rounders that didn't pan out. Now, there's one 6th-rounder that panned out, and that is Tom Brady. And I think he turned out pretty good. Nonetheless, he gets drafted. He's a wide receiver initially, and then he's converted to tight end. And he plays very, very sparingly, but he does get a little bit of action for the Ravens. And then in 2017, the bottom falls out. He gets suspended because of the recurring drug addiction issues that he continues to talk about, and which is part of a remarkable part of his story, that he was able to overcome that. Usually that's the end of someone's story, but he was able to ascend and rise from the ashes as it relates to beating his addictions. So I want to go back just for context, and I want to talk about his drug use. And again, this is just to bring light, and this is not to judge him, but Darren talks about how he began abusing oxycodone. That's a narcotic for pain at 15 years old, and also started drinking alcohol at 16 years old. So if you've ever done both, and I don't recommend it, it has a very potent effect, and it is super habit forming. And that's based off of various interviews and experience from other drug addicts or other people who have dealt with addiction. Now, his addiction got out of control to a point where he was spending $100 per day on pills. Then he progressed because he talked about, when you first start out, you get that high, and then you can't keep that high. You have to elevate to another type of drug in order to satisfy that insatiable appetite that comes with addiction and that comes with developing a habit. And it got so bad that on August 11th, while he was up in Maryland, he overdosed on pills while sitting parked in his vehicle. Now, I think this was a defining moment of his life because, as I stated in the intro, this could have been the end of his life, but it wasn't. I believe that a higher power or divine intervention steps in. He actually ends up getting an olive leaf extended to him. He goes through substance abuse for a little over a month up in Camden, Maine, and he took a job stockpiling or stocking shelves at a Sprout grocery market. So now that Darren has his addiction issues behind him, and he has his head on straight, and he's walking the straight and narrow, on November 26th of 2018, he is signed by the Oakland Raiders, which eventually turned to the Las Vegas Raiders, off of the Baltimore Ravens practice squad. During the 2018 season, he appeared in 4 games. He had 6 receptions for 75 yards. Now, most of us would look at that and say he didn't make an impact, but to me, this is somebody who has been down in the doldrums. They have been basically down in the valley, and now they've climbed and they have clawed and they've struggled their way to the mountaintop, or at least to the peak, in terms of being sober and now also being able to play at a professional level. This is remarkable. Now, the following year, in my opinion, in 2019, this was his breakout year. To date, I believe his 2019 and 2020 campaigns, those were his best. Those where he really showed, just immense strides, and he really, I think he got up there. I think he was probably, I'd say, the number 2 tight end, because Travis Kelsey was number 1. rightfully so. Even though I'm a Raiders fan and he's a Chief, but he was the best tight end, and Waller was the second best tight end. And if you look at the screen, you'll see the statistics on the screen, and he had a remarkable year. Not only that, the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl, and Travis Kelsey actually got that Pro Bowl, but because he had to play in the playoffs or play in the Super Bowl, Darren Waller was named as an alternate, and he couldn't play, unfortunately, due to needing to have thumb surgery. But to me, that's the pinnacle of his career, because you basically come from the bottom, you get to the top, then you are acknowledged by the league at basically being the best of the best, because they're not going to just let an average player make a Pro Bowl. He did everything within his power to become a great asset to the Raider organization. He stayed sober, he stayed focused, and you can see the product on the field as you're clearly looking at the screen. He came out and he balled, and he presented a lot of matchup issues and a lot of problems for the opposing defenses. 2021, Darren's unable to reproduce his 2019 and 2020 campaigns in terms of productivity on the field, and part of that had to do with him being injured. He had some lingering injuries, so he wasn't able to play a full season. He plays 11 games, and then something happens with John Gruden, and we know what occurs with John Gruden. John Gruden has to step down due to the controversy that everybody knows about. So now, not only that, you have Rich Bisaccia, he steps in as the coach. The Raiders, ironically, make the playoffs. They lose the only game, which was a wild card game in Cincinnati. That game was back with controversy as well. But nonetheless, you come back in 2022, and you get Josh McDaniels, which everybody advised Mark Davis not to do. But in Mark Davis being Mark Davis, he decides that he's going to hire Josh McDaniels. And I think from the onset that they never meshed, they never got along. That just was a failed tenure. That was a failed marriage between a lot of his players and the coach, which is Josh McDaniels. Now, in the same respect, in his personal life, everything's flying high. You sign that 3-year, $50+ million deal with the Raiders, and not only that, you actually you start dating NBA star Kelsey Plum, and then the marriage or the relationship develops very fast. It's almost like a whirlwind relationship, and they decide to tie the knot in 2022. So you have this major coaching change. You're financially secure, and then you and the coach, you're not getting along, and I think that was the beginning of Darren's descent, because I could see a player that wasn't focused from a football standpoint. He just didn't like McDaniels for whatever reason, and Josh has that ability to rub players the wrong way for whatever reason. I think it's just he's a control freak and whatnot. But on a personal level, you're doing well, and this marriage was with a lot of fanfare. I remember seeing a lot of news, a lot of vlogs about it, a lot of news reports. This looked like a match made in heaven, and unfortunately, at about a year and a half or 2 years, they decide to call it quits because they faced relationship challenges. And let's face it, nobody's perfect, no relationship's perfect, but shout out to both of them. They decided that it just wasn't going to work, and they didn't prolong any type of misery or just any type of discomfort. They decided to part ways. So after the divorce, things get a little bit bizarre, right? Because Darren, he's always been an aspiring recording artist, and I believe that's probably his first love. And he comes out with a song, he releases it, and it's heavy with auto-tune. And I can't really get a vibe off of it because it just sounds, I don't know what it really sounds like, but to me it looks like it's a subliminal. It's directed at his ex-wife Kelsey, and to me it just looks like he simply wasn't focused. He had a lot on his mind. And then not only that, the Raiders had entertained trade offers in the past for him, turning down a pretty sweet deal with Green Bay. And then, coming up and near the end of the 2022 season, the Raiders decided to trade him to the New York Giants. And he goes to the Giants, and really, to be honest, I think that he was a person or a player that's just out there. I didn't see any type of lust or any type of, not lust, but zest for the game, the usual bounce, the wide smile, just somebody who's really thriving and enjoying with what they're doing. They're just literally out there going through the motions, and I think that's what Darren was doing. And Darren had I won't say a mediocre year, but he just had an average year, didn't play the entire year. And now we're here because, again, less than 24 hours ago, he announced his retirement. As you saw at the beginning of the clip, he on his YouTube channel, he talks about it for about maybe 18 minutes about what he's been going through, and then just basically, hey, he's giving it to you straight from his mouth. And I think he still has enough or a lot left in the tank. He's 31. He's not in his 20s. And usually when you hit 30 as an NFL player, you start to decline, not unless you're Jerry Rice or maybe a Tim Brown or some anomaly or freak to where you're able to just condition yourself each and every year and you're able to come out and excel. But it's a shame to see him walk away. But hopefully, hopefully he finds peace. He can heal from his divorce, that he doesn't relapse, and not only that, I think that everybody should respect his decision, and he shouldn't be called a bum or called a quitter. He just decided that he needed to hang it up, and that's how everyone needs to be. If it's not there, if you don't feel any type of passion about it, it's time to walk away. And so I think Darren did the right thing. So let's engage in the comments. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is Bearded Aquarium for ATC. I'll see y'all on the next video. I'm out.